Calls for constitutional amendments have dominated political conversations in the greater part of the Fourth Republic. For those in favor, the existing document does not promote justice and equal development.
There's laws in Ghana, but the laws don't work. So I don't think the constitution has achieved its purpose. Parts of the constitution needs to be amended, seriously. Because when you're a poor man and they take you to court, it's like you don't know anybody. So your case wouldn't even be attended to. Because there are a lot of people in someone.
We are not going anywhere. Since 1992, the constitution, a whole lot needs to be changed. The constitution is not protecting the rights of the Ghanaians, but those in power, the politicians, is protecting them, not the ordinary citizens.
But for the Institute of Democratic Governance, Ghana has made several strides economically under the 1992 constitution compared to any of the previous republics.
I think probably if you look at per capita income, it's grown in the constitutional democracy time than it was in the military. Usually our militaries, if you take NLC for instance, NRC, he came and says, look, this debt's corruption, they took loans and so we wouldn't pay. And then, there was an embargo, we couldn't raise loans and so on, and you saw later on when the impact came.
A former Attorney General and Minister of Justice during the tenure of President Ejikun Kufuor, Ayikwe Otu, believes a call for constitutional amendment on the basis of poor economic growth is misplaced.
There's no need generally to talk about a constitution should be made for development, and it appears that this kind of stuff, a constitution, it is not true. It is not true. Singapore and the rest, what constitution do they have which has made them to move themselves from third world to first world? The blueprint is that Lee Kuan Yew from third world to first world. He said all the things, sounded all the right corporate notes. Just follow it. And now you think it's because of a constitution. What would the constitution do?
However, critics of the 1992 constitution have questioned why successive governments have failed to implement recommendations of the Constitutional Review Committee. The commission submitted its report in December 2011, and a white paper which accepted and rejected some of the recommendations was subsequently released. Over 10 years since this work, the executive arm under two successive presidents is yet to act on these recommendations, but two groups known as the Economic Fighters League and the Fix the Country movement are calling for a total scrap of the constitution.
Our constitution doesn't represent us. And that's simply what we are saying, that we need a constitution that represents us, that represents our hopes, that represents our dreams, that represents our aspirations. Is this too much to ask? And so if they are going to make these peaceful avenues we are using, dialogue in terms of changing the constitution, sitting down all of us, having an elected constituent assembly and coming by a new document, very soon it is going to become obvious that there's only one avenue left, and they can choose to describe it whatever they want, but it's important to understand the sentiments that would have driven the people to that point.
But Mr. Ayikwe has described such calls as unnecessary. For him, individual provisions of the Constitution should be amended only at a time when the need arises.
You see, the American Constitution is 200 years. And if you count the number of reviews or amendments, there are not that many. And therefore, sometimes, like the President rightly pointed out, it is a living document. And the Supreme Court has every right to use their experience and try and give an interpretation which will fit the purposes in which we find ourselves, like the Bible. I mean, how many years ago did Jesus Christ die? But up to date, there are pastors and priests who are applying, the biblical concept and sayings and writings and proverbs to modern day activities. So I am against rushing to amend Constitution for amendment's sake and making sure that we really need to amend before we talk about an amendment. Because it can always grow. It's a living document.
One of the provisions of the Constitution that has received condemnation from a number of Ghanaians is the appointing authority granted to the President. For them, the President's power to make enormous appointments across the three arms of government is disturbing. But for Ayuko Otu, there's nothing wrong with these powers.
Is it anywhere near the appointments that the American president makes? Does it come anywhere near the sort of appointment that he's making here? You know, they also drafted, if you talk about an executive presidency, then the buck stops with him. We are not talking about a prime minister and a president. We are talking about an executive president. So you have to give him powers to operate because the buck stops with him. If for any reason maybe a board can be asked to do certain things on his behalf, or like the Constitution provides, a minister can act on behalf of the president, right? But if you go and draft a Constitution which gives him what we call an executive presidency with full powers, then surely you cannot complain. You can't eat your cake and have it too.
But in what looks like a decision to release the presidency of some of its powers, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has assured of commitment to ensure MMDCs are elected and political parties allowed to participate in local government elections. For IDEC, this will be the first step to democratizing the executive, which they seem as autocratic in nature.
Local government is part of the executive arm of government. It's not of parliament. And it is actually, in every case, the development machinery. It's the machinery for implementing the policies of the head of the executive arm of government, the president. Okay, when you're in this state where parties are not allowed, opposition parties are not allowed in local government, it is similar to military time. Or one party. So what we've glossed over is that much as we see in parliament, the two parties, and there used to be PNC and others, the CPP at some point, that is democracy, different parties. The executive arm of government in Ghana today is not a democracy. It's not a liberal democracy, multi-party democracy. No, it's not democratic. It's like the military.
Currently, MMDCs are approved with prior approval from the Assembly. However, the appointed MMDCs seem happy with President Akufo-Addo's agenda. The president of the National Association of Local Authorities, Bismarck Inkum, believes they will be empowered more to provide the needed development when elected.
So I am of the view that when we make the election, the local authorities election, when we make it partisan, we are still also likely to have men with high skills getting attracted and going to it and to make local government what we desire. But ultimately, the structure today is good on paper. Political decentralization, yes, we have defined administrative authorities, but as to whether the structure today enables development at the local level as we expect, I would say it is no, because 95% of the total revenue sits at central government. And so when we are really serious with local government, then in terms of the money, a greater chunk should also go to local government.